Good morning, you guys. I'm back with another PKM app exploring video, and this time it is called Obsidian. Obsidian is a markdown, offline first note-taking app, and I use it to manage my personal knowledge. This is such a powerful app that a lot of people who are studying for their PhD or writing a paper, doing IT or coding actually use Obsidian to organize everything that they learn so that they can have like a really great structure of all of their knowledge on a certain subject. But for me, I'm just using it as like a leisure user. So my setup is not as complicated as everyone else, and it is kind of casual. I just like to use it to track my book notes, my movie notes, my show notes, because I'm really interested in the media. And I also like to track different ideas that I've learned from maybe articles or books, whatever, wherever. I just like to track everything, and I also use it to write as my diary. So that is a pretty casual use of Obsidian, and I just wanted to show you guys my setup for now because I've spent the entire weekend exploring, and I wanted to show you guys what I'm able to do with Obsidian. But firstly, I did wanted to talk about why Obsidian. Some of you might know Obsidian already because it's been a thing for a really long time, but it's been such a hard app to get into because there are a lot of customization options available, whereas apps like Notion and Capacities just have more structure to it, and there's no coding really involved, and you can easily filter everything. That is not the case in Obsidian, but there is a high degree of freedom in Obsidian. There are also a lot of community plugins, so whatever you can think of that you need in a note writing app, someone probably has already thought of that and made that plugin. So that is what makes Obsidian so powerful. And another point is that Obsidian is entirely offline. All of your notes are stored in a markdown file locally on your computer. So even if the Obsidian app goes down entirely, you will still have all of your files, and you can use another markdown app to read all your notes. And that is a huge priority for a lot of people, considering the safety of their notes and also their privacy concerns. But that doesn't mean that you cannot sync the contents of your Obsidian across all of your devices. You can sync it with your iCloud Drive, which is what I use. You can also use Google Drive, Dropbox, whatever other cloud service that you can use to store markdown files. And you can also use Obsidian Sync, which is also what I use. To show you how I use Obsidian, I want to go through one of my book notes with you guys. So I'm reading about the psychology of design. This book is actually called The Design of Everyday Things. And I read it in Chinese because I just found it easier to read this book in particular in Chinese, but actually I still have to learn the concepts in English because the nouns in Chinese are so messy. I don't know what's going on. Here's my page, and let's just go through all the windows on this page that you can see right now. So on the very left, we have all of our files. We have these folders that just stores every single note. For example, daily notes, all of the daily notes that are in here. And there's actually also a tag manager, search, bookmarks, whatever. You can use all of this. I can also easily close this, so I can just focus on writing. And on the leftmost here are some of the plugins that maybe I'll talk about, maybe I won't. And on the right here, I have a little calendar which links to my daily note. I can also just look at what day it is today because it has the date highlighted. And then on the bottom, here is a heading, table of contents. I have my tasks, and I also have a graph analysis plugin that I use to analyze what page is related to this page. Okay, so back to the main page. So here you see the title of the page, and under that I actually have some metadata fields for this page. And if you have used Notion or Capacities, you might know this as properties. And this is where you fill out every single piece of information about this note that you want to be searchable or sortable or filterable in the future. So I just have the title, creation date, type, so it is a book, and the image link. So you'll know why I have this later. But I also have the cover photo here, and this is how you insert a cover photo because it took me years to figure this out. So you put an exclamation mark, which means embed, and then a little bracket, and then a vertical thingy. And then you just type the size for the photo. You can change it. And then you just put another bracket and put the link to the image. And it's that easy. And then I also have a bunch of these metadata as well, and these are essentially the same as these grayed out ones. The only difference is that I can see these at the top of my page, and these I can just hide because I don't need to see these. And these are the things I want to see. And you see that some words are like in pink, in green, in purple, in brown, and these are the pages that I also made. So if I want to learn about human behavior, I could just click back into this page to see what notes I've made in human behavior, and which there is none. But you can also see that I have linked the tag human behavior, this topic, this definition, over here in How to Learn, Play, Sapiens, and also the book that I was showing you just now. So this is how everything gets linked together, and that is really, really fun. I also have a canvas of this book, and I also have Readwise on here. Canvas is their new feature, which is like a digital whiteboard where you can piece everything together, make connections, see everything together in a whiteboard. And Readwise is a service where you can use it to import every single thing that you found on the internet in your Kindle book, every single tweet, and import all the highlights into your Obsidian or Notion or whatever. They also came out with a new app called The Reader, so you can import articles, even videos, just to read and highlight in that app in a really silenced, focused environment, and you can just read everything really easily and import every single note ever. So I also have a checklist for after I'm reading, so I want to import the PDF of the book and write some notes on it, and I did add an hashtag to do right after this to do, and the reason why is because I do have this checklist on the right that only shows me to do blocks that I have hashtagged to do. So I hashtagged it so it will show up on the right here. So these are the notes that I have, and these are the highlights that I have. Every single thing. I also added some titles on here. So on the right here, you can actually see the headings and you can navigate through them really easily. But I actually don't really like to use this because to look at this, you have to open the right panel, and I don't like opening the right panel when I'm writing. So I actually have this other plugin called Floating Table of Contents that is over here that allows me to read it really nicely because it applies the color as well and blurs out the entire page when I'm looking at the table. In some blocks from the quotes, you will see that there is a little thing here that indicates that this block has been referenced. And it has been referenced in this note, the Canvas note. So this is my Canvas, and it is actually one of the main reasons that I decided to use
Obsidian
for my book notes instead of capacities, because I'm a really visual person, and I really want to be able to know the flow of information with a mind map or just a canvas. In a canvas, you could basically put any note. So this is just plain text that only exists here. But you can also put an entire note in here. So maybe I can put human behavior here. And the entire note will be here. I can edit it here, and I can also link it to this page. But actually what I like to do in Canvas is just put a note thing and then put an exclamation mark, which means embed, and double brackets, go to that page, say tab, and then I can link to any heading with a hash. So I can just link to the synopsis maybe, and it will be here, and I can resize it. But I can also link to each block. So I can use this upper arrow thing to look at every single block that I have, and I can actually search for them. So for example, I wanted to show this information pickup block. I can just click on it. You will see the number. The entire block has shown here, and this is the quote. And then I can go and write under here about my own thoughts. And this is how I did every single one of these blocks and added my own thoughts. The entire Obsidian vault is actually just a huge linkage thing, right? You want to link every single thing together. And how you do that is by using the graph view. And a lot of other apps have graph views, but none of them are as powerful as Obsidian, because I'll show you why. So every single object that you created can be shown here. You can also filter them. I can hide tags. So the green ones are tags, as you can see. And attachments are orange. I don't have a lot of them. And orphans, you can also delete, not show them. So orphans are any node that has no connection yet. So I can also hide them. So I can just look at every single thing that has a connection. And as you can see here, Obsidian. I can hover over it and I can look at every single thing that is related to Obsidian. You can see that there are a lot of daily notes because that's where I write my daily thoughts. So maybe I switched to Obsidian. Maybe I discovered a new plugin for Obsidian. So that's why I mentioned Obsidian. But there are also other things that is linked. So there is a how I use Obsidian page for my YouTube video, which is this one. How to learn, which is a page where I'm writing about how to learn. And Nicole van der Hoeven, which is a YouTuber that talks about Obsidian a lot, who I learned a lot from, and also my Obsidian guidebook, which I'll show you later. So that's how you can see how everything is connected. So maybe I want to go to Nicole van der Hoeven to look at what she talked about. So I maybe discovered her last year, September the 2nd, and you can see that she talked about personal development a lot. So maybe I could go to personal development and look at how everything is connected. Personal development connects to play, time management, note-taking, personal knowledge management, and another YouTube channel, MBTI, learning exhaust, etc. And you can also see that I have a note on my MBTI test because I did research a lot about my MBTI over the weekend as well. And this actually links to a lot of my therapy notes because after every single therapy session, I actually write some notes so that I can remember what we talked about in the session. So what I learned about my personality type actually a lot links back to my therapy sessions where my therapist and I all talked about every single thing before. So that was a really interesting connection, how I knew all of that already without having my MBTI tested, but having my MBTI tested and then reading about it actually made that more palatable for me to accept that part of myself. So, and this is the graph. It's nothing crazy actually. This is a really small graph compared to other people. Over time, it will just grow. More and more networks will form and you will notice more and more connections between each page. And as you can see, you can also like customize it over here. You can make a new group. You can make some queries, but that's a little bit too advanced for this video, so I will not do that. You can also tell it to animate, which is really cool. It's like learning biology, but I don't know anything about biology. Okay, moving on. Aside from the graph view, some of you might really miss those kind of database views from Notion or from capacities. And you can actually do that here. I have it set up right over here. So for example, I do have a dashboard for all of my books, and this is how they look. So I obviously didn't put every single book that I have ever read in here, but these are the books that I've read recently, and I have all of the properties in here. So this is a title, this is the status, this is the author, and these are the genres, the tags, my rating, and the date last modified. And setting this up is semi-tedious, so I would just follow a guide instead of trying to figure this out on your own. And to show this little gallery view, you also have to insert this little thing here at the very top of your page so that it will show, and you can actually also change this to show different aspect ratios of your cards. So 1 times 1, 2 times 3, that's really, that's the end of it. So to achieve this, you actually have to install a plugin called Data View, which lets you do this. You can do this to sort everything. So these words that looks like mumbo jumbo are the ones that you have inputted here. So type, image, status, author, genre, tag, rating, they are all here. So I could just list all of them. And I can also say from #book. So it will pull every single page that I have tagged book. And I also told it to not include any pages from templates because my template for books has the #book in it, but I don't want template to show in my book database. And I can also sort it by file, modify time, descending. And this is the image, and this is the file link as title. And if I did not include this and I just said table, the name of the book will show up before the photo. Depending on the length of the name of the book, the space it will take up will be different and the pictures will not be lined up. To fight this, I just said table without ID so that the name is not shown, and then I just asked it to show the file link as the title. So this is how I have it all set up. I also have one for my shows, which is a lot more elaborate, as you can see. I also have it for my movies. I did this over the weekend to try and figure out how I want to set this up, which is why I have so many random things in here. That is that for how I have been using Obsidian so far, and that is kind of like a childish way to use it because a lot of people actually use this for really elaborate purposes, maybe writing a paper. I just use this for my personal entertainment and I don't regret it one bit because this is actually one of my biggest passions right now in life, exploring different apps and just trying to organize everything. So I don't regret it one bit. I also have other tips for you guys if you do want to get started in exploring how to use Obsidian. And I worded it in that way because I know that using Obsidian will be like a constant learning experience where you just constantly discover a better way to do things and change things, which is how I'm experiencing everything. Now, with that, there will be a lot of changes in your system that might make your system not reliable, but that defeats the whole point because the entire point of having a system is so that you could trust it instead of your own physical brain, because as we all know, we are really bad at remembering things. So I do have some tips. The first tip is to make an inbox for every single thing that you haven't sorted yet. So for everything that I created, I apply this template which applies the inbox tag to it. And I have this page with a data view. Every single thing that I had tagged inbox, apart from templates and apart from this specific page, it will show in here as unsorted. So I know to go into these pages and sort them and add connections to them, and it will disappear from this page. And the reason why is because I don't want any single page to become an orphan, because the entire point of pages in Obsidian is for them to have connections. So I have to manually go in there and add the connections, and yeah. And I also have this in progress thing, which are the topics that I do want to explore and write more notes on and maybe watch videos, read articles about. And I tag them in progress, and my data view actually looks like this. I want it to be from the hash in progress, and I want it to exclude any piece of media that I am watching or reading, because then I can go into their respective dashboards to see. So this in progress view will just be for my topics that I want to explore or some articles that I haven't finished reading. So this is how I can see everything. So maybe I wanted to learn more about time management, so I can read about the topic that time management is about, which is productivity, and it is also related to personal development. So having a dashboard or inbox like this just helps you visualize everything at once. And another tip in making Obsidian is to make a little guide or a manual for yourself to follow, because it might get really confusing really fast because different people use Obsidian differently, and when you watch different videos of how people use Obsidian, you might mix them all up and it might all be too confusing. It will be helpful to keep a note of how everything is organized, to keep a standard on things. I talked about what should be in my second brain, how to organize everything. So pages are for something, tags are for status or attributes, folders are for projects or unique pages. For example, pages that are from Readwise, the app, and linking pages, etc. To-dos, this is how you add your to-dos. And I also linked to another note-taking note that talked about the latch system, which I found from Nicole Vanderhoeven, who I talked about earlier. And this is also another note that I have linked to, as you can see. And here I talked about metadata, because that is one of the most important concepts in Obsidian, and I referenced these videos so I can watch them when I forget. And here I have a list of the metadata that I want to keep track on, so it will always be consistent across my entire vault, so I don't mix up using the plural forms of different words, whatever. And I also have rules on what to set as my aliases. I set up the acronyms for pages, alternative spelling, alternate name, and the Chinese version of different words, because I've been reading the design book in Chinese, but I actually wanted to keep the notes English, so I have the pages in both languages by aliases. So for example, I have a conceptual model from the design book that I was reading, and it has the alias of the Chinese name that is from the book. Setting up data view for metadata fields is also a challenge for me, so I do have these notes that I wrote for it about. And then I also have some visual note-taking notes so that I know how I can make my notes visual. So that is really simply and quickly how I use Obsidian for now. And that is a really simple introduction to Obsidian if you haven't used Obsidian before. This is by no means a tutorial because I omitted a lot of parts, different setup process in this video, but you could actually just go on YouTube and search every single thing. And that is how I set this thing up. Actually, I just think of, can Obsidian do this? And I can Google it and I watch a video or something and I follow it. Yeah, if you're like studying something really elaborate, maybe you're writing a paper, maybe you're getting a new job in a new field, maybe your new hobby is really elaborate, or even if you're playing D&D. I saw a lot of people using this to play D&D, and that is really fascinating to me because I don't know what D&D is. Or if you're just crazy like me and you want to spend your entire weekend on this single app setting up something and organizing something, you can use this. But yeah, just a really good way to put all of your notes together, make linkage together so you can, that is it. I don't know if this was interesting to you guys, hearing me talk about this setup, but I hope it was, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you go on and explore Obsidian for yourself. It is really fun. Yeah, I'll see you next time.